Hi everyone, I am B. Shobarani. So what is biology then? Biology is nothing but study of living organisms and their processes. Plants, that is growth by cell division, occurs continuously throughout their lifespan. This is a very important point to be noted. Biology is such an interesting subject where many of you would like to go for. So once we have grown, we cannot go back to our childhood. If it was so nice, it would have been, right? Hi everyone, I am B. Shobarani from the Department of Biology, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence. Welcome to my first session 1 of this chapter 1 called The Living World. A hearty welcome to my first session of this biology class. Before I start this session, I would like to congratulate all the students who have completed their 10th standard examination successfully amidst this coronavirus pandemic. And I would like to congratulate those students who have opted PCMB as your science stream for your first PUC. And particularly, I would like to congratulate those students who have selected biology as one of your optionals in first PUC. Who does not like biology, children? Who does not like biology? And biology is one such subject which is not restricted only to the books. Biology is around us and within us. Don't we feel so happy to see the living organisms around us? That is the plants and the animals. The beauty that is lying in our biodiversity is because of this living organisms. Coming back to the session 1, I am going to teach the first chapter of your first unit called Diversity in Living World. As I said, the unit 1 has 3 chapters and this chapter 1 is called The Living World. The very word itself will tell you, biology is nothing but full of life. Such a lively subject. I do like to teach biology. Hope you all like biology, to study biology. Right. So moving on to my first part of this session, that is, what is biology? The very word itself, let us understand. I think right from your school days, you would have studied about biology. Biology is one subject which is not new to you. As I said, biology is around us and within us, right? So first of all, what is biology? When you split the word called biology, bio means what? Living. Logy means what? Study. So what is biology then? Biology is nothing but study of living organisms and their processes. So how do we define biology? Biology is nothing but study. It's a very important branch of science which deals with the study of living organisms. So biology is the study of living organisms and their processes. And we know how the living organisms interact with this environment, right? Now, don't you find a variety of plants and animals existing on this beautiful planet Earth? Definitely. So that the planet Earth has various kinds of living organisms. No two organisms are similar on this planet Earth. We come across a variety of living organisms. Like what? The planet Earth consists of various kinds of living organisms. Like we classify them into prokaryotes, eukaryotes, unicellular, multicellular, that is the plants, animals, etc., where we use a word called biodiversity. That is, we have a variety of plants, we have variety of animals existing on this planet Earth. And we come across a variety of non-living entities also along with this living organisms. So this planet Earth has both biotic and abiotic components. Biotic and abiotic components. The interaction between the biotic and, what do you mean by biotic? Living components. What do you mean by living components? That is the living organisms. What do you mean by abiotic? The non-living components. Non-living components. that is air, water, all these are called as what? Abiotic agents or abiotic components. So we have this interaction on this planet Earth between biotic and abiotic components, right? So as I said, this beautiful planet Earth has a variety of living organisms comprising of what? Prokaryotes, eukaryotes. Anyhow, you are going to study in detail about what are prokaryotes, what are the characteristic feature of eukaryotes in the coming sessions, right? Unicellular like amoeba, paramecium, euglena, etc., etc. And we know we plants and animals are called multicellular organisms. What is the advantage of being multicellular? We have millions of cells in our body, and these cells group into what? Tissues. Tissues into organs, and organs into organ system, and all the organ system put together make an organism. In our body, we have different organs to perform different functions meticulously, that which in turn will lead to what? Living, right? So the life of an organism depends upon the different organs that are functioning inside our body very meticulously, very meticulously. So what is biodiversity then? Let us understand the term what do you mean by biodiversity then? So as I said, the planet Earth has various kinds of living organisms comprising of prokaryotes, eukaryotes, unicellular, multicellular, that is the plants, animals, etc. Put together, all these living organisms put together, they are called as what? Biodiversity. What do you mean by bio? Living. Diversity means what? Variety. The variety of living organisms that are found on this beautiful planet Earth, right? Hence, the world is having what? A wide diversity of living organisms. Hence, we use the word called biodiversity, right? Hope you have understood the introductory part of this very important and interesting chapter called the living world. So what is biology? Biology is the study of living organisms and their processes. And the planet Earth has what? Varieties of living organisms. Like what? Like prokaryotes, eukaryotes, unicellular, multicellular, that is multicellular plants and animals, which put together we use the word called biodiversity. Hence, the world is having what? A variety of living organisms on this planet Earth. Moving on to the next part of this. What is biodiversity then? How do we define this word called biodiversity then? The variety and the variability among the living organism is called biodiversity. How do we define this word called bio? As I said, you split the word, you get the meaning. Bio means what? Living. Diversity means what? The variety and variability of living organisms which we come across in this beautiful planet Earth is called biodiversity. It might be asked for 1 mark question also. Define biodiversity. So biodiversity, as I said, biology is such an interesting subject where many of you would like to go for medical. That is, you want to pursue your higher education in medicine and you want to write the competitive exams like NEET and CET. The very important thing is the basic concepts what you are going to study in biology is very important. Only when you are through with your concepts, definitely cracking all these competitive exams will not be a problem for you all, right? So try to understand, as I said, biology is such an interesting subject, right? And the concepts will also make you have interest in studying, right? So try to understand the concepts very clearly and write the concepts clearly, then only you'll be able to score good marks. And scoring centum in biology will not at all be a problem for you all. And also scoring, cracking your competitive exams also will not be a problem, as most of the concepts you come across in your daily life or you would have studied in your school days, right? So as I said, what is the definition? Definitions are very important. Whenever you have to write the definitions, write the correct definitions. For example, like definitions are asked for 1 mark question. You can't write half right and half wrong, where you will get 0 marks. Right? Half right, half wrong answers will not fetch you marks. Either you have to write completely right or completely wrong, right? Only the complete right answer will fetch you 1 mark. So definitions are very important. Write the correct definitions. You can't write half right and half wrong. So how do we define the word called biodiversity then? Biodiversity means the variety and variability of living organisms. Or in simple terms, how do we define? The sum total of species richness richness. Don't we find a variety of living organisms, maybe the plants and animals around us? So we have a richness of what? Species. So sum total of species richness. Like you come across the Western Ghats, right, or the Himalayas, where we come across the species richness. So sum total of species richness is called biodiversity. What is the correct definition for biodiversity? The variety and variability among living organisms. Or you can also define, what is the other definition for biodiversity? Sum total of species richness, right? Now, all of us right from the beginning of this session, I'm using the word called living organism. So you all might we all have a doubt in ourselves, right? What is living? What is living? Because as I said, on this planet Earth, we come across both living and non-living components. So living organism exhibits certain characteristic features which is not exhibited by the non-living organism. What is that which makes the living to exhibit certain characteristic features? So what is living? How do we define what is life? Right? Or you can also call life as a dynamic system coordinated by physical and biochemical reactions, right? So it is you can call it as a dynamic process. Life is a dynamic process. So what is living then? The state of being alive. Whom do you call it as living? Whoever is alive, we use the word called living. So the state of being alive is called living. So how do we define the word called living? The state of being alive is called living. And as I said, we come across so many non-living things around us. We come across living organisms around us. But are we not able to differentiate the living from the non-living? Definitely. Are you not able to differentiate? Right? Yes, of course. This pen is non-living. I am living. You are able to differentiate the living from the non-living. As you know, the living organism exhibits certain characteristic features. So all living organisms exhibit certain characteristic features. What are the characteristic features exhibited by the living organisms? I think all of you know, only living organisms grow. Growth and development is a very, very important characteristic feature exhibited by the living organism. You might ask, like formation of a mountain or a formation of a hill, even that is also growth. But growth in non-living is called accretion. Growth in non-living is called accretion, right, which is totally different from the growth that happens in living organisms. So growth and development is one very important characteristic feature which is exhibited by the living organisms, along with what? Reproduction. Only living organisms reproduce. Very, very important, children. For the continuity of the generation or for the continuity of the species, one very important process need to happen. What is that? That is nothing but reproduction. Reproduction enables the continuity of the species generation after generation. Till today we are able to see the species, means it is because of this very, very important event happening in the life of a living organism called reproduction. Anyhow, we are going to study about this reproduction in the coming session. What is reproduction? What are the types of reproduction, etc., etc., with suitable examples. Next, metabolism. Don't we find a number of physiological processes happening inside the body of a living organism? May it be digestion, may it be respiration, circulation. So the sum total of all these physiological processes that is happening inside the body of a living organism is called what? Metabolism. So we are going to study about, so metabolism is also one such very important characteristic feature of a living organism which is not exhibited by a non-living entity. So the living organism exhibits what? Certain characteristics like what? Growth and development, reproduction, metabolism, and cellular organization. Very, very important point. What do you mean by cell? Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. I think all of us do agree. Don't you agree? What is a cell? Cell. Our body is made up of what? Millions of cells. So what is cell then? Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. So what is a cell? Cell is a structural and functional unit of life. All of you know? How do we differentiate a living cell from a non-living cell? A living cell will have a very, very important substance called protoplasm. Whenever a cell is having protoplasm, such a cell is called living cell. What is that which attributes to the living of a cell? Life of a cell, that is the protoplasm. A cell without protoplasm is called as a dead cell. So what is the living substance of a cell? So according to Huxley, he said that protoplasm is the physical basis of life. There is no life in a cell without protoplasm. So protoplasm is called the physical basis of life, right? And I think all of us know that. So all of us, what is the advantage being a multicellular organism? Either it might be a plant or an animal. So as you know, cells group into what? As we know, multicellular organisms will have millions of cells. What is the advantage? That is, the advantage is what? Cells group into tissues, tissues into organs, organs into organ system, and organ system into an organism. So we are able to carry on different physiological processes with different organs, which is responsible to carry on the activity of life. That is the advantage between a unicell, like amoeba, only one cell will carry on all the life activities. But in our body, we have different organs to perform different functions. That is the reason why we have a better body organization than compared to the lower organisms like the unicellular organisms. So we are called as higher animals, higher plants and higher animals, because we have a better cellular organization. That is what you are going to study in the coming session. What is in today's session, I'll be explaining about what is growth and development. So in the coming session, I'll be dealing with reproduction, metabolism, etc., etc. That is consciousness, very, very important. Consciousness is also called response to external stimuli. It is also called irritability. We have a feeling of touch. We have a feeling of, like if somebody pricks you, we feel it. So we are able to sense the what you call the environment around us. It is because of this very, very important property called consciousness, which is exhibited only by the living organisms. You hit a stone, it will not respond back, but you hit an animal, it will respond. It will feel the pain because it is exhibiting a very important property or a characteristic feature called what? Consciousness. What do you mean by consciousness? Consciousness is also called response to external stimuli. For example, in your house, you just come across a hot pan. By mistake, you touch it. You just hold. Are you going to continue holding your hand on the pan? Immediately, you withdraw it. That is what you call it as response to external stimuli. External stimuli is what? Heat, hot pan. Response means what? You are going to withdraw your hand. So this is one such property which is exhibited only by the living organisms, not exhibited by the non-living organisms. So as I said, all living organism exhibits the characteristic like growth, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization, consciousness, which is also called as what? Consciousness is also called response to external stimuli, or it is also called as irritability. So all these are the living characteristic feature which is exhibited by the living organism. So I repeat, so what do you mean by biodiversity? The variety and variability of among the living organisms, or the sum total of species richness is also called as biodiversity. What is living then? The state of being alive is called as living. And as I said, we come across so many living organisms around us which exhibit certain unique characteristic features like what? Like growth and development, like reproduction, like metabolism, like cellular organization, and consciousness or irritability, right? All these are the characteristic features which is exhibited only by the living organisms. And all these characteristic features are also very important for the living organism. How is it so very important? As you know that we come across a wide variety of living organisms living in almost all habitats. What do you mean by habitat? Habitat is called place of living. Place of living, or it is otherwise called dwelling. Terrestrial is one habitat, aquatic is one habitat, aerial, that is birds and all live above live in the air. So they are called aerial animals. Arboreal, monkey is called as an arboreal animal. So we find animals almost in all habitats, may it be terrestrial, may it be aquatic, or may it be aerial. Now one question arises, how are these organisms able to survive in almost all habitats? How are they successful in surviving in all types of habitats, may it be terrestrial, may it be aquatic, may it be aerial? One very important feature that is very exhibited by living organism is adaptation. What is adaptation, otherwise called adjustment? So this unique property of living organisms enables the organisms to survive or to live in almost all habitats, may it be terrestrial, may it be aquatic, or may it be aerial. So any organism is able to survive because of its adaptive features that it is going to implement in that particular habit to survive. Who does not want to survive? For example, right now in this coronavirus pandemic, we are all struggling hard to survive. Why? Because we all want to live for a longer time, right? So we want to protect ourselves from this coronavirus. So we are just waiting or thronging for the vaccine to be discovered so that we can be safe with this coronavirus. So all like that, all living organisms want to survive. So in order to survive, they'll come out with certain strategies or with certain adaptations which enable them to survive better in an environment, right? Hope you have understood the concept about what is biodiversity or what is living and what are the characteristic features of the living organisms, that is the growth and development, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization and consciousness. As I said, the organisms, the living organisms are able to live in almost all kinds of habitats such as what? Aquatic, terrestrial and aerial. What makes them so successful in living in almost all habitats? It is because of adaptations. They are able to come out with certain adaptive features which enable them to survive even in adverse climatic conditions, or even when the conditions or the environmental conditions are not favorable for the survival of an organism. Moving on to the first and foremost characteristic feature, that is growth and development. As I said, all living organisms exhibit certain characteristic features. First one is what? Growth and development. A very, very common word which we come across in our daily life. Don't we use this word called growth? He is tall, she is short, right? And even development also. But what is the exact definition of growth and development? Growth, we can call it as a permanent, irreversible increase in size of an organism. So once we have grown, we cannot go back to our childhood. If it was so nice, it would have been, right? But it is not possible. Why? Because growth is a permanent, irreversible increase in size of an organism which is accompanied by an increase in dry weight or biomass is called growth. So what is the correct definition of growth, children? Growth is a permanent and irreversible increase in size of an organism which is accompanied by what? Increase in dry weight, or dry weight is also called as what? Biomass is called growth. So growth is one such characteristic feature which is exhibited only by living organisms. As I said, growth, for example, there is a mountain formation, there is a hill formation. What do you call that growth there? That you call it as accretion. Accumulation of materials. Accumulation of materials is called growth there. So this is in non-living. Here it is what? Increase in size of an organism accompanied by what? Accompanied by an increase in dry weight. Dry weight is also called as what? Biomass. So what is the correct definition of growth? Growth is a permanent and irreversible increase in size of an organism which is accompanied by an increase in dry weight, or what we otherwise call it as biomass. Then what is development? Almost these two words mean the same, like we feel that, but there's a lot of difference between growth and there is a lot of difference between development. Growth is a permanent and irreversible increase in size of an organism. Then what is called development then? Development is a sum of changes that occur in an organ or an organism during its lifetime. So whatever changes that is happening inside an organ or an organism during its lifetime is called development. So growth is what? Right from the infant stage, right from the fetus developing in the mother's womb till we grow old. Do you think the growth is permanent in human beings? Growth is not permanent. It is a permanent, irreversible process. But do we grow till we die? No. Growth is restricted to a certain stage of life, right? We don't grow even after old age, right? So growth is a permanent and irreversible increase in size of an organism which is accompanied by increase in dry weight or biomass. Whereas development is what? Development is the sum of changes that occur in an organ or an organism during its lifetime. Hope you might have come across one word called lifespan. We use this word called lifespan. What is lifespan? That is the period from the time of birth to natural death. From the time of birth to natural death is called lifespan. All of us know that the lifespan is not of the same in all the organism. It varies from an organism to organism, right? So during its lifetime. So what is growth and what is development? So what is growth and what is development? Growth is a permanent and irreversible increase in size of an organism which is accompanied by an increase in dry weight or biomass is called growth. Then what is development? Development is the sum of changes that occurs in an organism that is in an organ or an organism during its lifetime. Hope you have understood the first and foremost very important characteristic feature of the living organisms. As I said, all living organisms exhibit certain characteristic features like what? Like growth and development, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization, then what? Consciousness, very, very important, that is response to external stimuli. So one very important, that is the first very important characteristic feature is what? Growth and development. Now, growth, as all living organisms grow, that is increase in mass and increase in number of individuals. So all living organisms grow. So increase in mass and increase in number of individuals, they are called as twin, double characteristics of growth. What is it? Increase in mass, that is biomass, or increase in dry weight, and increase in number of individuals. We call both as what? Twin characteristics of growth. And as I said, all multicellular organisms grow by cell division. But one thing all of us know, in plants, that is growth by cell division occurs continuously throughout their lifespan. This is a very, very important point to be noted. We may do this what we call, oftenly we come across in our garden, we trim the plants, right? We do this what you call pruning. After some days you can see again it has regrown. This is called as growth again, but this is not possible in case of human beings. You cut a hand and a leg, do we get back a hand and a leg? No. That means to say that growth in plants, that is in plants, growth by cell division occurs what? Continuously throughout their lifespan. But in animals, this growth is seen only up to a certain stage. Only up to a certain stage growth will take place. After that, do you think the animal will or the organism will die? No. Only growth will not take place, but all the other activities will be going on as usually, right? But only thing is the growth would have stopped. But in plants, this is like something very unique. And all of us know what is growth by cell division. Already you might have studied in your school days. Cell division is of two types, mitosis and meiosis. What is mitosis? Division of the cells. 1 cell will become 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, 8 into 16. So they keep on multiplying. That is the characteristic feature what we come across in multicellular organisms. So we have millions of cells. How are these millions of cells formed? Through mitosis, right? So in plants, growth by cell division occurs continuously throughout their lifespan. But in animals, this growth is seen only up to a certain stage. And I think all of us know, like unicellular organisms like amoeba, paramecium, they all grow by what? By cell division. Right? Hope you have understood. So all multicellular organisms grow by cell division. What are the two twin characteristics of growth? That is increase in mass and increase in the number of individuals are called what? Twin characteristics. So a multicellular organism grows how? By cell division. Either it might be an animal body or a plant body. It grows by what? Cell division. Already I told you what is cell division? Multiplication of cells. Through what process? Mitosis. Right? Then meiosis takes place in germ cells or reproduction. That is again a different story. Right? Anyhow, we are going to come across in the coming chapters what is mitosis, what is meiosis, that is cell, the unit of life, cell division, all that. Right? In plants, growth takes place by division which occurs continuously throughout their lifespan. In animals, this growth is seen only up to a certain stage. We don't grow throughout our life, right? Only up to a particular stage we grow. And as I said, even unicellular organisms also grow. How do they grow? They grow by cell division. Hope you have understood the very important concept, the first very important feature of living organism, that is growth and development. Hope you have understood all the concepts what I have explained in this session. Don't you find biology quite interesting? Here itself you can see how beautiful it is. The planet Earth is made up of what? Full of living organisms, that is the plants and the animals surrounding us, and the beauty of nature we have around us. So all this is nothing but what? Biology. Biology is nothing but a study of living organisms. So as I said, biology, why it is an interesting subject? Because biology is around us and within us. Hope to some extent I have made you understand about this very important, some of the important concepts of this chapter called the living world. So in the coming session, I'll be dealing with the other concepts of this very important chapter and a very interesting chapter called living world. I think I'll be discussing about reproduction and metabolism, then cellular organization, then about consciousness. Till then, goodbye and thank you.